Avatar: The Last Airbender is an amazing series that has captured the hearts of anyone and everyone who was fortunate enough to come across it when it originally aired. Despite it being intended for a child audience, its amazing story and well-written characters catches the attention of even the most adult adults. Even as a child, despite there being so many wonderful channels to look through, I distinctly remember dropping anything I was doing just to make sure that I didn't miss a single second of the latest episode of Avatar once it finally aired. And let me tell you, despite all the wait, it was worth it. One reason mainly being the reason I was so interested in Ang's journey from the start is that even before I met him, I knew it had already begun. Despite seeing the story from the perspective of two random siblings, it was easy to understand how dire of a situation he was in when they eventually freed him. I knew his quest and how unbelievably far he was from it. It came to me as no shock when I immediately noticed that Aang was even more unaware about the world he was in than I. And the only thing I knew about the world then was that the Fire Nation were ruling. And though I didn't notice it then, Aang couldn't have been any more perfect. He was a perfect self-insert character as I went on a journey discovering more and more about a world completely new to me. That was more than enough to make his growth one certainly not to be forgotten. The most prominent aspect of his growth being one thing that really fascinates me about Aang's journey is how realistically he reacted to the changes that occurred as time went on. Now, Aang's character growth is mostly reactive. Something acts on him and it moves him, like the wind. So most of the time, when we got to see him shine, it was because of the actions and interactions we had with other far more aggressive characters. When Aang's journey started, all he seemed to be focused on was having fun, not really bothering about what the future had to offer, and just enjoying the journey ahead and whatever it had to offer, much like the wind, which is quite fitting for someone of his nature. Along with this, it also seemed like despite knowing that he was the Avatar, he didn't accept the responsibility that really came with it, and that flat out refused to acknowledge the title for what it truly held. Aang was dead set on ignoring the Avatar nonsense, and just living out a peaceful life with the Water Tribe. But as dictated by causality, we do not always get what we want, and Aang was about to learn that the hard way. The Fire Nation, an unstoppable force, their wrath known throughout all nations, but the true extent of it not. Despite Aang and I knowing a bit about the new generation of firebenders, a vague outline of their horrible deeds, as well as the fact that he was actually frozen for 100 years and not a few days, this was still our shared impression when we first saw the Fire Nation arrive on the shores of the small ice village that Katara and Sokka called home. Despite Aang's noble acts of bravery as he tried to fend off Zuko, he took a look back and saw the uncertainty and fear in the eyes of the people he was trying to protect, and decided to do what was best for them and just surrender himself to the prince. At first, it may seem like he was solely trying to correct what he had caused, that being alerting the Fire Nation of his presence in the village. But it struck me more of a desperate attempt to secure the idea of living a peaceful life with the villagers. But upon looking at their faces and realizing the impossibility of that ever coming to be, he gave up and surrendered, telling me that he had reluctantly accepted his role as the Avatar and for what was coming next. Aang had been captured and his only means of escape confiscated. Now his capture was assured. He was only a few steps away from being locked away and inevitably executed. But we all know that wasn't going to sit well with Aang, and seizing the opportunity, he sneakily managed to avoid all of his captors. He was in the clear and just had to find his way out of the stupid ship. But he forgot one important thing, that he had dealt with his problems, all but one. After searching several rooms for a way to get out, he finally found the thing he was looking for, coincidentally on a silver platter. But it was all a trick. Zuko wasn't interested in taking Aang to the Fire Nation. He he was going to kill him there and there for honor. Unfortunately for him, Aang was far too agile and sneaky for Zuko's straightforward and brash attacks to get a hit on him. Aang, using Zuko's moment of weakness, grabs a glider, managing to escape and get on top of the ship and open his glider and set sail. But it's Zuko. We all know he also doesn't like giving up. He danced right after Aang and grabbed his ankle, bringing him right back down to earth, promptly reminding Aang that being the Avatar wasn't a small deal, and it would take more than a few tricks to get out of a situation alive. Zuko, seemingly entering his second phase, made his already aggressive attacks even far more ferocious, putting Aang on the ropes. Just before Sokka and Katara could come to his aid, Zuko quickly finished off Aang with two well-placed fireballs, stopping the Avatar permanently. But Aang, refusing to give up, unleashes the mother of all plot devices, one-shotting Zuko and his men, effectively showing us what the Avatar can and should be able to do. Exhausted, he reverts back to base form, and the gang is shortly reunited. But before things could pick up steam once again, the gang hop on Nappa and off into the sunset, discussing what the next step of action would be with the new developments at hand. Personally, I believe that in these moments, Aang really did get killed by Zuko. The Aang that we had come to know and love the past two episodes was dead, and instead, a new Aang came forth, one who had accepted that it was his responsibility to live up to the expectations that the monks and the world had in him, regardless of the hardships that came along with it, whilst having a bit of fun along the way. To conclude, what I find so beautiful about Aang's story is that in a world full of magicians that can manipulate fire, water, earth, and air, despite the almost impossible hurdles that come with restoring world peace, it still felt like I was watching a human try to achieve something and not a god. The same goes for Zuko, but I'll talk about him later. I could easily understand the struggles Aang was going through and the reason and pain behind the aggressive and distraught actions towards them. But through perseverance and a bit of support, he managed to overcome what stood in his way, making his dream seem not so impossible whilst fighting the battles within him. Aang's journey and growth is beautiful because it isn't so different from that of you or I. It's real,